breathe purple and gold? Are you ready to hoist the colors? Now, time for the most in-depth look at the world of ECU athletics. Welcome in to Hoist the Colors with your host, Stephen Igoe on 94.3 The Game. Watch the show live on Facebook and at 943thegame.com. Now, here's your host, Stephen Igoe.
Welcome in, Hoist the Colors on this Thursday, June 6th edition of the program. We got a lot to discuss. We're going to be joined in a second by Scott Rogers, play-by-play voice for East Carolina baseball. Philip Pilkington, as always, producing the show. We're live on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. Got a comments, question, concern, and I'm sure there are many out there. If the Hoist the Colors message boards are any indication with what's going on with the transfer portal in ECU baseball. So we'll discuss that and a whole lot more. Let's welcome in Scott Rogers, Scooter, the play-by-play voice for ECU baseball. Scooter, I really thought we would be doing more of a season in review, and we will talk a lot about the season that was during this show, but I think we're going to be talking a lot more about the transfer portal. So broad take. First off, how you doing? You like you're in a good spot. You getting some rest in now that baseball's over? And then your reaction to all this transfer news.
Yeah, it took a couple days, and I'm in an undisclosed location. I'll say that. But it's been a kind of a whirlwind here this week. You know, you lose that game on Monday, and not necessarily heartbreaking fashion, but it's a win-run loss in a game 7 of a regional, and then pretty much 48 hours later, you're having your number 2 pitcher go in the portal. It sounds like you have Bristol Carter in the portal now. You have all these guys that were going to be key contributors next season already gone, and just kind of a whirlwind here this week.
No doubt. It's been a very emotional 6 days, I would say. Now we're on Thursday, going back to the regional opener against Evansville. So we'll talk a lot about the season, but I feel like we got to address the biggest news up front, which is the portal. And it's just, a lot to digest. All right, let's start with, I do want to clarify a few things. I get a lot of texts, Scooter, about what's going on with ECU baseball, all this stuff. Like, this stuff is happening everywhere. We've talked about this a lot with when basketball players are in the portal, with football players in the portal. It's just unique, I would say, that is happening with baseball, specifically with notable players. All right, the two big ones are Zach Root and Bristol Carter. We'll touch on each of those specifically, but those are the outliers. The rest of them, you're talking about guys who, may or may not have played a big role next year. I know Luke Nowak played a big role down the stretch, but he was, off the bench player for most of the year. He's going into his senior year. I don't take that as a huge surprise. Corey Costello started the regional championship, but barely pitched all season. Could he have been a contributor next year? Yes, but I don't think it's like some massive loss. And then you have a lot of guys who kind of you expected to transfer. So just because we're seeing all these transfers doesn't mean the ship is sinking or Cliff Godwin is leaving for South Carolina. I want to clarify that up front. Obviously, the big news, though, of Root and Bristol Carter. So I'll get your take on each of these specifically. Scott, just that we'll start with Root, his departure. How do you feel like that affects ECU for next year and kind of your reaction to that one?
Yeah, it's a tough one because Root probably would have been the Friday night arm next year, looking at it right now before you even get into the portal and, bringing guys into East Carolina. Root is your number 1 pitcher on the staff going in the next season. And, there was so many rumors out there about, he's holding out for NIL money when he was injured over that month of April or last half of April and then most of May. And, who knows why he went to the portal. He might have family issues going on down in Florida, wants to get close to home. You never know these reasons, but everybody obviously assumes the one thing, and that's NIL. But nobody will ever know that for sure. And, that's really the biggest shock, I would say, of all these. And then Bristol Carter's the other one. A really good player that was in his freshman season, hit the ball really good for not having a ton of power in those numbers. But, just didn't play well down the stretch, it seemed. And that's where Luke Nowak kind of overtook that job in left field during the regional this past week. And, not saying that had anything to do with it, but on the surface, it looked like it could.
No doubt. I think from talking with people, Root, I think is more NIL driven than anything. And I know like you said, we'll never know the exact reasoning. I've heard Florida State's already in there. We'll see where he ends up. He's got a lot of interest. I mean, he could be a first-round pick next year, so we'll see what happens there. Bristol Carter, I don't think is as much NIL driven as it's just like you. All right, so you look at Bristol Carter in high school, he was this like, I don't want to say reckless, but he was kind of this like crazy free player, steal bases, stole home all the time, hit for some power. And then like he gets to ECU and he's kind of, I don't want to say handcuffed a bit, but he wasn't that same player. And so I texted with Bristol this morning. He kind of said he needs to get back to being that same guy he was in high school. And, could that have happened at ECU if he stayed? I don't know. He felt it was best to move on. So I think Bristol, he's got a ton of SEC, ACC interest already. Scooter, he'll end up at a good spot. And I don't think he has any ill will towards Cliff Godwin or ECU. He just wants to get back to being himself. So every situation is different. I don't think Bristol's jumping for money. I think he just wants to get back to being himself, and it'll be interesting to see where he lands.
Yeah, and as you see a lot of times in basketball and football, a lot of times the player just doesn't fit that system. And, maybe Bristol just wasn't the best fit for this program. And, as tough as that is to say, just because he's such good of a player, sometimes it's just not that right fit. And you need to find somewhere that you might be a little bit better fit. That's not saying, as you said, there's any ill will towards East Carolina and Bristol Carter together. Just sometimes you might need to get in a different system in terms of offense or defense or just overall.
All right, Lane Smith on YouTube says, what's happening? Is this a locker room thing, a coach thing, or just college athletics at its finest? I really just think it's a combination of college athletics being what it is. It's, with the decision for the NCAA to make free transfer without penalty, it's just so easy to leave now, Scooter. I mean, it's just, if you could rewind, I was having this conversation earlier with Scott Lorbatcher over text, like Connor Norby, he did not feel comfortable, I think, his freshman year at ECU. He decided to stay. He grew as a result of that. Maybe if this is now, Connor Norby doesn't stay after his freshman year, it ended up being one of the best things that ever happened. But I think we're going to see more and more of this, even at a program like East Carolina baseball that has had such a strong level of success and culture. It's just too easy to leave for these guys now.
Yeah, it's essentially free agency is what it is now. And, we've seen it a ton with basketball here recently where guys are just going everywhere every single season. And it's trickling down to every single sport in college athletics. It started with football, basketball is really big, and now it's getting into college baseball as well. And, hopefully this doesn't happen, but I think it's kind of moving towards a model where these quote unquote group of five programs are going to be considered the feeder programs for the Power Five, which is really tough to say, but that's honestly, what it's coming to right now. And that's frustrating from a standpoint because we know East Carolina is technically a mid-major program, but they're not a mid-major program in college baseball. They can routinely beat those big dogs every single year. And now that you see the aspect of college athletics, it's kind of like an adapt or move on situation.
Johnny Robertson says, since the South Florida series, Bristol only hit 227 with one extra base hit, a double, had 0 stolen bases. Yeah, only 5 stolen base attempts on the year for Bristol Carter, who's kind of known for his outstanding speed. So that was maybe another reason or a surprise, kind of given his track record coming in as far as why he may be leaving to go to other places. But any other transfers that kind of, I don't know, surprise you or caught your eye? We saw Corey Costello, who started the regional championship, make the decision to move on. Outside of that, I wasn't really shocked by anybody. Like, I kind of expected Luke Nowak to transfer, even though he had the strong finish. But your take on any of these other guys, Scooter?
Yeah, not really a surprise for any of them. The one, I wouldn't say it's a surprise, but it sounds like Cam Clonch is in the portal. I think he's exhausted all of his D1 eligibility, and seen on social media a lot of these D1 players posting that, due to NCAA rules, they're out of D1 eligibility, but they're still eligible to play at either a D2 or D3 program. And so that might be the route that Cam Clonch is trying to go. And, if he's got one more year left and he loves this game so much, why not go out there for one more year? Maybe try to get a grad degree from one of those D2 programs, if that's a possibility, and, try to give it one more go at a D2 level. A high-end D2 program would be, I would say, probably scoop him up in a minute if that's a possibility, because that would be one of the best players probably in all of Division II baseball.
No doubt. Robert says, can you explain the Cam Claunch eligibility on YouTube? And yeah, so Scooter hit on it there. I did text Cam yesterday, and his response was, working on getting a year back from my freshman year. Not sure if it's possible, but I'm trying. He said, I just want 1 year to go play. So, I mean, I think obviously if he has to go down a level or, whatnot, even if he gets another D1 year, I think anybody in ECU, Pirate Nation could understand that, that's one of those things where he just wants to play, man. He gave 4 years to ECU, not really a full-time player ever, and I think that would be a great thing to see. Adam McMunn says Jacob Jenkins-Cowart said on Holton Ayler's show that Cliff will not offer NIL money in the portal. Does that mindset need to change to compete? I mean, that's a big picture question. Certainly one we can get into. I mean, I think he said he's been on record saying he wants to utilize NIL money for guys in his program that have been there. Like, honestly, I mean, like a Bristol Carter or Zach Root to retain them more so than lure guys. But I don't know, Scooter. I mean, you can have different philosophies on it. If you're a coach, certainly a lot more coaches are willing to spend in the portal. Cliff Godwin has not been one to do that in the past. Do you think any of this changes his philosophy, or do you think Cliff will still be Cliff? Maybe he only knows. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends. Everybody's got different philosophies on it, as you said. But if you can still get those guys to campus and retain them for a year, like you said, and then bring the NIL stuff into the picture, that's obviously the possibility there. But the one biggest thing is, we've got to be able to have the NIL resources to be able to retain those guys and get the guys here regardless. And so that's why, they've been stressing the 23 club and getting donations there because, unless people donate and unless you have those resources, you're not going to have the opportunity to retain or get guys in here. And so, that's the biggest thing is being able to have the right amount of resources to be able to do it.
No doubt Club 23 doing its thing, and I would encourage folks to give to it. Next time we talk to Cliff Godwin, I will ask him kind of what his does he change his portal philosophy? Is he still going to develop players or rely on that primarily and then use the portal to supplement? Does he look at going to the portal more? My understanding is they are looking at the portal more this offseason, obviously to replace some holes. And Scooter, I mean, you look at the roster right now for next year. I mean, you got Riley Johnson, who is projected to be back in center field, but he's got to have surgery on both shoulders. So you would assume he would miss a good chunk of the offseason. On paper, obviously you have Dixon Williams, who will be a rising junior going into his draft eligible year. I think he can play, multiple spots on the infield, so he's likely going to be a starter. McChrystal is draft eligible. We'll see what happens there. We know, of course, Jacob Jenkins-Cowart is draft eligible. More than likely, I would expect him to leave. But there are a lot of positions up for grabs right now, and it should be an interesting offseason, if nothing else. Just your thoughts on maybe the next year's team, how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of holes that you're going to need to fill, really center field and, second and third base right now, I think would probably be your only main returners. And, as you said, that's Riley Johnson, Dixon Williams, and then third base, I would put Colby Wallace in that slot right now. And then depending on what happens with Ryan McChrystal, if he gets drafted or stays here at East Carolina, there could only be one catcher on this roster with Justin Wilcoxon graduating, and then Walker Barron was hurt throughout that regional. And so you only had two players there. But, there's a lot of positions that spots are going to be up for grabs. And whether it's, younger guys coming in from the high school ranks or you do go to the portal and get those pieces, but there's going to be a lot of new faces on that field next year. And, that's not even mentioning the starting rotation right now. You pretty much don't have a starting rotation with Trey Savage going to get drafted, Root in the portal, and then Jake Hunter more than likely out next year after his arm injury this year. And so there, like I said, there's a lot of spots up for grabs all over that lineup.
Could all this be, I don't know, a positive? Somebody said on YouTube, I'll see if I can find the comment, that this is a positive long-term and an opportunity for the coaching staff, Cliff Godwin, to change with the times, or conversely, this will be the ceiling of ECU baseball if Cliff Godwin doesn't adjust. I don't know. I mean, we're still talking about a program that has hosted 5 of 6 regionals, and I think has been very successful doing the things they do. I do think you have to adapt to the times and find the balance there. And again, we'll talk to Cliff Godwin about all this. But, there's a ton of open competition. And, like, even for guys like Nick Parham, other returning freshmen, to possibly step in. I mean, how many guys, Scooter, have we seen? You look at this whole senior class this year, like Justin Wilcoxon was a non-factor his first 2 years in the program. Joey Barini was a pinch hitter his first year in the program. Carter Cunningham was a guy who entered the portal after his first year.
Another one.
Yeah, Starling. So it's like guys do come out of nowhere, and like I think we'll see that again. I do think you can't count on only that, but my hunch is we'll see a few of those next year.
Yeah, and that's why it's been good to get some of these guys playing time this year. You look at Nick Parham was able to get some time in at shortstop in late games, when the Pirates were up pretty big. And, just being able to get that time out there is huge, just to be able to get them some game action in those first few years. But as you said, a lot of guys come out of nowhere. I think Nick Parham certainly has the ability to do that. For them to already put him in some game situations this year has shown that he can do it. Walker Barron is another one that didn't really get much time behind the plate. We saw him more in pinch hitting roles this year, but he's proved that he can play at this level too. And so, those are kind of going to be the guys that I think will be right there at the top of the list when it comes to those positions next year. But they certainly have proved that they can play at this level.
And there's a huge incoming class already committed. And, sometimes it's hard to get a lot of baseball recruiting information, but there's a lot of junior college players, or I should say a handful, that are committed who ECU will be looking at potentially making an immediate impact. A lot of high school freshmen coming in that could play a meaningful role right away. So you combine that with the portal, and honestly, they're still maybe even over slot for next year's roster. I'd have to do the math with all these latest departures, but they do have a lot of incoming pieces, and we'll see what happens. We'll get more into the roster breakdown in future weeks. All right, let's get a break in. We've got a question about can I address the possibility of Cliff going to South Carolina? We'll discuss that and more with Scott Rogers. We'll also get Philip Pilkington's take on some of this stuff as well. This is Hoist the Colors on a Thursday. We'll be right back.
New Toyotas, 0 down and only $369 a month at Greenville Toyota during the Great Rate Sales Event. Buy with 0% or get Corollas, $369 a month with 0 down. This is not a lease, you own it. Plus, get our Greenville Advantage at Greenville Toyota.
Acre Station Meat Farm, along with Lane Angus Beef, bring you Farm to Fork Beef.
Stock your freezers now with affordable beef boxes, just in time for the grilling season.
Farm to Fork Beef brings quality local beef to your family. From your traditional butcher shop, Acre Station Meat Farm. Come on down to Acre Station Meat Farm and find out why we're #1 in fresh cuts and friendly service.
Acre Station Meat Farm, Highway 32 North, Pinetown.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone. Combined with our fresh chicken, cooked-to-order seafood, and homemade fixins, we're sure you'll agree. If it's not Moore's, it's less.
You know what the problem is with standard belts? Usually you have to choose between too tight or the opposite, too loose. But with Anson Belt & Buckle, you don't have to choose. We got rid of the holes and instead have a track system designed for micro-adjustability. That way you can enjoy a perfect fit every time. Anson Belt & Buckle. Find your perfect fit today. Anson Belt & Buckle. Find your perfect fit.
When a place is as special
And
as
those are kind of
this,
going to be the guys
you don't
that I
want to
think will be
change a
right there at
thing.
the top of the list when it comes to
You
those
simply want to
positions next
enjoy
year,
it,
but they certainly
just
have
as it
proved
is. That was our inspiration behind Bow Coast West, our newest community in Beaufort, North Carolina. Embrace all that we love about this very special place and make it easy for families to enjoy all that this coastal lifestyle has to offer. Be inspired. Bow Coast West.
Get low, get low, get low. 369. Ooh, she fine. Hoping she can sing it to me one more time. Get low. Get low, get low, get low.
Grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Ready to save thousands with a great rate? Get 0% financing at Greenville Toyota during the Great Rate Sales Event. Shop our massive inventory of new Toyotas, available as low as 0%. Hurry to Greenville Toyota today, where our volume saves you money.
The Pirates play here. Arr! This is Hoist the Colors Radio with Steve and Igoe.
Yes! That was so good!
On 94.3, The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors. We're getting some comments here. Apparently, Scooter's mic was on during the break.
Sorry, yeah, when I cut away from you guys, normally it turns all the mics off, and I guess because I had Scooter's pre-turned on when I went to break. I hope you didn't say anything bad, Scooter, to get me in trouble, did you?
No, apparently I was just whistling.
Oh.
And I was getting a drink out of my refrigerator.
Okay.
And my computer charger. So y'all probably heard a bunch of stuff.
All right. I apologize. That was me. I'm sorry.
I'm not saying
Luckily, we were just
yeah,
we were just texting about it instead of talking about it. Thankfully,
I was confused why you can hear me, because normally you can't. That's why I was confused.
I know that was on me. I was very thirsty and went to go get water and didn't check myself. So.
Hey, you got to be careful when the mic's around. You never know when a hot mic could be on, and we weren't bashing anybody, so that's the main thing, guys. Yeah. We did not bash anybody. Donnie Run Pass Patrick says, I thought I was hearing things again. All right, so this will be the norm. Unfortunately, Dennis Barber says, unless they go back to the old transfer rules of sitting out a season. Yeah, it's just too easy to transfer now. It is what it is, man. This happens everywhere. All right, we got a lot of comments coming. Ryan Gupton, former ECU baseball player, former guy, used to play baseball with, went to D.H. Conley. He says, Igoe, can you speak about the possibility of Cliff going to South Carolina? There's a lot of smoke around it. With all the guys transferring out, it certainly makes you wonder. So my understanding is, obviously, South Carolina extremely interested in Cliff Godwin, as is basically every premier baseball program that has an opening. You know, you never know with this stuff, but I'll be honest, I talk to a lot of people in the know, and there's like little to no smoke or buzz about Cliff Godwin actually entertaining that job. I continue to hear Monty Lee, who is an assistant there now, former head coach at Clemson, is likely to get that job. Doesn't mean that'll 100% happen. I've heard the Wake Forest coach, Tom Walter, was in the mix, along with some others. I just have not gotten any indication that Cliff Godwin is really going to entertain taking that job. Now, he may have talked to South Carolina. Him and Ray Tanner have friends and everything, but I just think it's one of those things where at this point I don't see it happening. Could always change. And I think it's unrelated. Guys hitting the portal. Cliff Godwin has been in on these exit meetings the last 24 hours or so, from my understanding. So I think it's just all unrelated to that, and it's just more of a sign of the time. So, again, things can always change, but that's my read on it right now. All right. I don't know, Scooter, what do you think about South Carolina? Like, I always just thought it would be a weird, kind of an odd fit for Cliff. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but I still think it's unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, obviously as an SEC program, he's had everybody on his back ever since he got to East Carolina. And anytime there's an opening, they go right after him, it seems, and he's turned every single one of them down. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he turned South Carolina down before when Mark Kingston was hired that time as well. And so, if sticking to his word, it seems, of, not entertaining any offers, leaving East Carolina until he gets this program to Omaha. And, I still firmly believe that that's the case.
No doubt. And we'll continue to keep you. If we hear anything new, we'll let you know. Johnny Robertson, we were talking about Cam Claunch earlier. He says, speaking of D2, congrats to Joey Rezick, who was a first-team honoree, hitting .421 with 22 homers. So he transferred down to D2 and hit .421 with 22 homers. Jonathan Fields wants to know if we have Cliff scheduled to join the show anytime soon. Not right now. We'll try. I'll reach out, try to get him on next week before we wrap up for summer break. Obviously, we'll still be doing interviews on the site before or after that, but he's busy with all this portal stuff, and I'm sure at some point is going to want a mental break for the summer. But I'll reach out to Cliff, see if we can get him on the show, and Bob Whaley says the NIL is turning small schools into player development for bigger schools. As long as they have the money, they will have to do limited recruiting. Thoughts? Well, I mean, look, Trey Savage, guys, could have left last year and gone anywhere he wanted to, and he stayed. And so all this talk about every player ECU develops is going to leave for more money, I think is untrue. Yes, you're going to have some casualties. You're also going to, if you utilize the portal, you're going to be able to get guys either coming up from D2 or lower schools that want to transfer up and play at ECU. Like, ECU should be a very attractive transfer baseball destination if ECU utilizes it. I think that's the question many people have. We see it in football. We see it a little bit in basketball. You can get good players here. Yes, you're going to lose some guys, but I think for the most part, and we'll get Philip's take on this, if ECU does utilize the portal, you can still benefit from it. It's just one of those things we'll have to see how much Cliff Godwin and his staff want to use it.
Yeah, we're in this weird spot where we're not a Power 5 technically, and we don't have the Power 5 NIL presence, but you're still viewed around the country from your competitors as a national championship contender. And I think the easiest way to compare us is to Gonzaga's basketball team. Now, the difference is in basketball is you have the one-and-done rule where you don't have to stay 3 years of Division I college. So there's that, but they're still able to retain players on a yearly basis and have four-year guys. So I think ECU can as well. But with that being said, some of the guys that you retain will have to, or sorry, some of the guys you have will have to be transfers in, like you said, from those lower levels. And the unfortunate thing I think right now, and maybe the reason people are freaking out is because Coach Godwin has said publicly that he doesn't want to give NIL to guys who have not been in the program at least a year, which I totally respect that philosophy, because he is so much a culture type coach, and it's not just about winning baseball games, it's about building a culture. However, in the world we live in, he may have to adapt, and I'm not saying that he has to right now off the bat, but if his philosophy doesn't continue to work, obviously he may have to down the road. But look, like you said, there's plenty of guys that are tearing it up at smaller programs, whether it be with the bat or on the mound, and maybe not as many on the mound, but there are few, and you can find diamonds in the rough. And like you said, ECU should be a kind of a sexy transfer destination. You play in front of 6,000 people. You host a Regional 5 out of the last 6 years. So no reason that kids shouldn't want to come play here.
I keep seeing comments about the, questioning the culture. And I don't think there's any program that has a perfect culture where all 40 baseball players get along perfectly, or all 100 football players get along, or all 13 basketball players get along. But you're talking about a culture and a program that has produced records the last 6 full seasons of 46-17, 47-19, 46-21, 44-17, 47-18, 44-18. Yes, ECU has not made it to the College World Series in Omaha, but clearly there's a good culture. Otherwise, you would not have 6 years of that level of success. You're talking about 44 or more wins, 6 consecutive years, Scooter. So, maybe there needs to be some reassessing done of the portal and all that. But people saying that Cliff Godwin needs to reevaluate everything, or this isn't going to work anymore, I think just because a couple notable guys are transferring, I think is a little bit overreactionary.
Yeah, that's one thing that this program is so special about is their culture. And, even Cliff Godwin has spoken about that many a times this year, how this was the best, leadership group, that this program has ever had in terms of the leaders of this program. And, I don't think culture is anywhere close to an issue with this program. In fact, I think it's a non-issue, honestly. Being around these guys in the clubhouse, being around them off the field, pretty much all of them get together, it seems like, and get along with each other. And, it's a joy to be around that group. That's how special, the type of people that play for East Carolina are. And so, for people to say that culture is an issue with this program, I think is really, a bad statement.
The hard thing I think about culture is each coach develops one, and different people fit into different cultures. There are probably plenty of kids that would not fit into the type of culture East Carolina has, but there are plenty of great players that fit the East Carolina culture that may not fit in the culture of a different program. different peoples make what makes the world go round, and there are definitely different cultures. But I'm with you, Scooter. It's not a bad one. It's a very healthy one. But still, different players respond to different coaches. Same reason we see, players all the time follow coaches to new destinations. It's not because they didn't like the place they were at, but because they committed to a specific coach because they are so loyal to that culture. And if Cliff Godwin were to leave, I guarantee you he would take a lot of players with him solely because they believe in the culture that Cliff Godwin has set, and they know that he will take that with him to whatever program that he decides to go to.
Yeah, and you see that a lot of times.
Go ahead, Scooter.
But I also think you see that all the time with other coaches when they leave programs is they take players with them because that player wants to play for that coach because they trust them so much. And I totally agree with you on that. But I mean, like I said, culture is not an issue at all at East Carolina. That's one thing that I said just a minute ago, but that's what this program really prides itself on is how good the culture is. And if you fit into that culture, you're a perfect fit for East Carolina.
Yeah, and I mean, you could be a really good baseball player and just not fit at ECU off the field. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to travel coaches that say this guy's a awesome player, but he could not play for Cliff Godwin, or he could not survive under Cliff Godwin. Like it is different. There's it takes a lot for a guy to survive that freshman year, and that's why you've seen so many kind of weeded out over the years. But the guys who do kind of survive usually end up being really good centerpieces for the team, and we'll continue to see maybe the evolution of that change a little bit now with the portal, how it's so easy to leave because we've seen so many freshmen leave the last few years. But I do think there has to be a balance between that and also trying to welcome in transfers, because I just feel like you're at the point where if you want to kind of get to that next level, continue to have this level of success with the amount of guys leaving as freshmen right now, you're going to have to supplement that with some transfers. Not that you have to build a program that way, but I do think you got to combine it and supplement it. So all right, let's get a break in. We'll come back. We'll continue this conversation. I do want to get Scooter's thoughts on the season that was, also the senior class. Again, many guys who didn't play at all early in their career and now exit as some of the more decorated players in the program history. We'll talk about that and more. This is Hoist the Colors on a Thursday.
Hi, I'm D.R. Alligood.
And I'm his daughter, Jessica.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
252-946-1227.
This is about you, your family, and the health of all who live in Eastern North Carolina. This is about the transformation of a health system into something more powerful and more human, about creating new ways to treat disease and keep you well. This is about ECU Health, which is to say, it's really all about you. ECU Health. Minds, hearts, purpose.
Your confidence makes everything look good. You see the world in vivid color, not black and white. Swing through your neighborhood Fantastic Sam's Cut in Color and let our experienced stylists take you from everyday to extraordinary.
Fantastic Sam's hair salons are locally owned and operated. Our full-service salons are conveniently located in Goldsboro, Kinston, Greenville, New Bern, Jacksonville, and Calabash. Stop in today at Fantastic Sam's, where the possibilities are endless.
Hi, I'm D.R. Alligood.
And I'm his daughter, Jessica.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
252-946-1227.
Living easy is the sound of children laughing as you make memories with neighbors and friends. It's the sound of nothing at all. It's the smell of the salt air. Hear the waters against the marsh grass. See the beauty of our coast. Bow Coast, located in Beaufort, North Carolina. Southern Living's best small town.
You know what the problem is with standard belts? Usually you have to choose between too tight or the opposite, too loose. But with Anson Belt and Buckle, you don't have to choose. We got rid of the holes and instead have a track system designed for micro adjustability. That way you can enjoy a perfect fit every time. Anson Belt and Buckle. Find your perfect fit today.
Here there be pirates. Back to Hoist the Colors with Stephen Igoe. How good is this? On 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors on this Thursday, June 6th. Plenty of portal talk, as obviously that is what's going on. The ECU baseball season is over. Bristol Carter, Zach Root, amongst others, have hit the portal for ECU baseball. So we discussed that a lot over the first 30 minutes. I do want to talk with Scott Rogers, our guest today, ECU baseball play-by-play voice about the season that was. Philip Hilkenden also producing today. Scott, let's relive a little bit of the Greenville Regional. You know, Philip and I have spoken about it this week. Let's get your take on it. How would you kind of sum it up from a broad view perspective, how the season played out in Greenville this past weekend?
You know, I think one of the biggest things is you look at, you know, obviously Evansville, who won it, and just the fact of how hot they were coming in. They were the hottest team in that tournament and coming in, and you know, we could see that in numbers. You know, it's a team that hit close to 500 in their conference tournament coming in. And, you know, it really, you know, looking back on it, reminded me a lot of that 2022 East Carolina run about how hot East Carolina was coming into the NCAA tournament. And, you know, Evansville kind of replicated that a little bit with how well they hit the ball. Of course, their top of the order was really good, and Fugers and Schallenberger, and you know, it just proved that they are, you know, maybe one couple swings of the bat better than East Carolina in that final game. But, you know, East Carolina obviously easily could have won that last game if they, you know, do a couple of different things here and there. But, you know, it just appeared that Evansville was, you know, a swing or two better, it proved on Monday.
And, you know, sometimes with the 4 seed, Scott, it's almost like they're happy to be there. And in some respects, Schallenberger said they kind of were, like they were playing with house money. But also feel like their combination of playing free with their veteran leadership. I mean, how many 23, 24-year-olds they have on that team that, you know, Schallenberger said it, they'd already had a successful season, and they're good players, they're experienced players. They'd already played at Mississippi State this year. Like, usually those 4 seeds can be intimidated. This group was not, and I thought that played a big reason. I don't think they'll win at Tennessee, but it wouldn't surprise me if they go up there and give them a scare too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, anytime a team's swinging the bat that well, you know, they have a shot anywhere, honestly. But, you know, like you said, they had a lot of older players on that roster. And, you know, just to have, you know, that's another thing that reminded me about 2022 was East Carolina had older players in that lineup with, you know, you look at, obviously, Zach Agnews, you look at Bryson Worrell in that lineup as well. And, you know, I just thought there was a lot of similarities there offensively between that club and East Carolina's club in 22, but just to have that much experience and all of them swinging the bat well was two of the big contributors to Evansville's success.
The Wake Forest game was, I thought, a pleasure to watch, cover. How was it from an announcing standpoint, Scott? Will that be one of the games you always remember?
Yeah, for sure. You know, that was probably one of the best games that, you know, I've called and 2 seen in person ever. You know, there's only so many times you're going to have a matchup like Trey Savage versus Chase Burns. And for Trey to do what he did in, you know, what is now the last time he'll ever take the mound as a Pirate, unless something absolutely insane happens in the MLB draft, you know, it shows how good he was. You know, Chase Burns, East Carolina got to him very well. I thought that was really one of the best offensive attacks that East Carolina had all season. And, you know, that was a credit to Henry Lartigue and Bryant Packard for the plan they put together offensively to get to Burns. But, yeah, I mean, that was honestly one of the best baseball games I've ever seen. And, you know, obviously fans were nerve-wracked about it, and it was nerve-wracking up in the booth as well. But that's certainly a game that I will never forget.
Scooter, this senior class and obviously the juniors as well, like Trey, and if JC moves on and some of the others, certainly going to leave an impact at ECU. And I know I don't think you were in the room for the postseason press conference on Monday, but that was, I mean, it was one of the toughest things I've had to sit through. You know, getting to know these guys, and obviously you still try to keep it professional, but you know we know how much they put in it and how much East Carolina means to them. It was probably the toughest post-game press conference I've ever had to go through. So did you watch that? Any thoughts on the emotion of that moment? And then post-game, we also saw Danny Bill, you know, sticking around with his dad in center, then hanging out on the pitcher's mound, and also Carter Cunningham in right center with the Nico Agnos bench. So just extremely emotional finish to the season for that class.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, this is a senior class that has put so much into the Pirate program. And you think, you know, you take out the school aspect and the off the field things with this club, with this class, I mean, and you see the success that they've had on the field, you know, all the conference titles they won, the many regionals they've been in. You know, you host the very first super regional on campus in school history. So many things on the field that this senior class has done. And, you know, that's not even mentioning things like the Homers That Help campaign that Carter Cunningham has done, the many things off the field that the rest of this senior class has done as well. And, you know, it honestly is one of the best senior classes, if not the best senior class when it comes to those things in East Carolina history. And, you know, as you said too, they put a lot into it. Everybody knows that. You know, this is a senior class that had that one goal in mind of making it to Omaha. They were going to be the ones to kick down that door this year. And, you know, as Carter Cunningham said, it just wasn't meant to be this season. And as tough as that might sound, you know, that year will come. It's going to happen eventually. And, you know, it won't be the senior class to do it, but you can bet that they're going to be right there behind everybody, you know, in future years, wanting this program to keep on succeeding and eventually kick down that door to Omaha.
Scott Rogers with us, play-by-play voice for East Carolina baseball. You know, unlike many, got the chance to travel the road with these guys the last few years. Any of those personal relationships you really forged with these guys that you'll kind of always remember? Any of these seniors that you'll always kind of keep in touch with in the years beyond?
Oh yeah, I mean, Carter Cunningham is probably one of them that for sure will be that. You know, I've had so many interactions with him off the field, just from, you know, whether it's airports or, you know, having dinner in our team room at the at hotels throughout our trips. And, you know, that's one thing that is so, you know, I don't take for granted at all with this job, is being able to get to know these guys and the coaches and everybody off the field and know them on a personal aspect. And, you know, it shows how special they are. And, you know, it's like I said, it's one part of this job that I certainly do not take for granted.
When you look back at the season, you know, obviously we talked about the Wake game, and there were other memorable moments, to walk off versus UNC and just that series win in general. Are there any big moments or series of, you know, a weekend series as a whole, big moments, performances that really stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that North Carolina walk-off was big. You know, I thought one of the best games of the year in terms of playing-wise was the North Carolina game in Fayetteville. I thought that was a outstanding game that East Carolina played. You know, obviously calling back-to-back no-hitters was special as well. You know, that's something that nobody can say that they've ever done. And, you know, and you know, you look at what East Carolina did during conference play this year. For them to have run ruled so many teams this year, I think shows how well that team was playing at the midpoint of the season. You know, those moments are special. I thought Trey Savage's performance at Memphis was one that was really cool to see. I think it was the Wichita State game at home that Trey pitched in. I think it was that one. I could be wrong. It's either Wichita State or Charlotte that Trey was unbelievable that night as well. And, you know, just to be able to see how good he was throughout this year was really special. And, you know, like I said, just, you know, the whole season was awesome to be a part of. And, you know, there's so many moments throughout the year. It's hard to wrap your head around all of them, to be honest.
Who do you think was the better college pitcher their junior year, Trey Savage or Gavin Williams, or is it an impossible question to answer?
I would say, man, that is a very tough one to answer. there's so many different parts of it because I think they're different pitchers. You know, obviously Gavin was the guy throwing, you know, up to 98 at some point. Trey, you know, has that obviously really good split. I just think they're two different arms, but, you know, I think they're equally as good in terms of ability and stuff. And, you know, definitely two that will be two of the best to ever wear the purple and gold on the mound.
Jonathan Fields wants us to address, does Carter Cunningham want or get the opportunity to play pro ball? You know, I know talking to Carter, and I'll let you address this as well, Scooter, that he had already done some job interviews. I don't know what the status of those were, but he was looking forward to life after pro ball or, baseball. I do think with the year he had, like you would think he could at least get a cheap free agent contract. The problem is his age and obviously his class. He's going to have no leverage in the draft. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Have you talked with Carter at all about that?
Haven't really. You know, I think that, you know, there is an outside shot that he could get in there maybe on a free agent deal. But this is also a guy you're talking about that has an MBA that will be making a whole lot more money than a lot of us probably this time next year with that degree. And so, you know, and you know, when you look at some of these guys, you know, a lot of them just are tired of playing at this point. And, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but, you know, most of these guys probably started playing baseball when they were 6 or 7 years old. And, you know, now that they're 23, 24, you know, graduating from college, you know, a lot of them are just ready to hang it up and get on with their normal lives. And, you know, that might be the feeling for Cunningham. And, you know, like I said, with him having an MBA, you know, the job offers that he's probably going to have with that degree are probably going to outweigh a lot on the financial side than some low-level free agent minor league deals.
All right, he is Scott Rogers. Let's get a final break in. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the show with Scooter and Philip Pilkington on the other side. This is Hoist the Colors on a Thursday.
Air Service is back at Pitt Greenville Airport, offering safe, clean facilities and flights from American Airlines. That means the short commute, quicker lines, and better prices that get you where you're going fast and easy. See it for yourself. There's great things inside at Pitt Greenville Airport. Storm season is approaching. North Carolina weather can damage your roof, and before long, a small leak can turn into a big problem. Your home is one of your biggest investments, so protect it with Wells Home Improvements.
We work with all insurance companies for a hassle-free roof installation experience. Call us today and get 10% off your roof installation when you mention this commercial.
252-227-8403 or visit us online at wellshomeimprovements.com. Wells Home Improvements. Local, honest, dependable.
Big tax credits are back. Get a 30% tax credit, up to $2,000 off your new Mitsubishi electric heat pump install. Let Comfort Master help you take advantage of the tax credits with a qualifying Mitsubishi electric ducted heat pump or non-ducted Mitsubishi electric mini splits. Mitsubishi electric mini splits are ideal for bonus rooms, garages, or sunrooms. If you need a new HVAC unit, call Comfort Master today.
Call Comfort Master. Call Comfort Master. Let's go! Woo! Woo! Yeah! Football time!
Set the tone. Kyle, take your shoes, take your shoes. Yeah, good job.
Woo! Yeah!
Grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild. When a place is as special as this, you don't want to change a thing. You simply want to enjoy it, just as it is. That was our inspiration behind Bow Coast West, our newest community in Beaufort, North Carolina. Embrace all that we love about this very special place and make it easy for families to enjoy all that this coastal lifestyle has to offer. Be inspired. Bow Coast West.
Air service is back at Pitt Greenville Airport, offering safe, clean facilities and flights from American Airlines. That means the short commute, quicker lines, and better prices that get you where you're going fast and easy. See it for yourself. There's great things inside at Pitt Greenville Airport.
Back to Hoist the Colors with Stephen Igoe.
Drink up for me, hearties, yo-ho.
On 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. It is our final segment. It's been a fun show. We've talked ECU baseball transfer portal. We had a hot mic situation with Scott Rogers, but luckily nothing was said. Philip Pilkington producing. Been a good show, and I know obviously kind of tough circumstances with the portal, but I got to be honest, guys. Like I know the transfer portal stuff gets old. It gets really old from my point of view. I'm sure you guys too, and definitely the coaches and fans. But I do like an off-season kind of the unknown because it brings a lot of intrigue. So I don't know, Scooter. I'm looking forward to seeing like how does ECU address this, attack it, and again we'll try to get Cliff Godwin. But it gives us a lot to follow this off-season because it's not just going to be status quo like some previous off-seasons.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously going to be so many pieces to follow this year, and you know, I think the biggest thing now is you turn your attention to who does East Carolina bring in to replace these pieces. It's not necessarily to see who leaves now. I think that's pretty much, you know, who's gone. As who's gone, you might have another surprise here and there, but you know, I think that now you turn your attention to, okay, let's get these pieces filled and let's get back to work in the fall. I think is going to be the biggest thing from here on out.
Philip, when you look at the roster now, like, what do you feel good about, if anything, and what do you, if you could go pluck somebody, whether it be portal or like incoming player that you really want to be a star at a certain position or positions, what would you choose?
I think I feel the best about the infield. You know, Colby Wallace started some games this past year. We'd expect him to play the left side of the infield. I think, you know, Dixon could very easily move to second where he played at Conley. And then, you know, Scooter brought up earlier Nick Parham. And if we consider catcher part of the infield as well, McChrystal and then Walker Barron, and I think Barron is a heck of a catcher. I mean, the fact that Cliff was DHing whoever didn't start said a lot about his trust in Walker Barron. So I feel good there. But look, at the end of the day right now, I think if you could go after any one position group, you're going to find somebody fast who can catch a fly ball. We know that outfield is going to kind of work itself out, so I think it's got to be the mound. You know, you can teach guys to play first base. You know, it's happened in the history of baseball, right? You see, if you watch the movie Moneyball, they were teaching guys who had never played first base before to play first base. Jackie Robinson did not grow up a first baseman, and he became a first baseman. So Carter Cunningham did not grow up a first baseman, and he ended up playing there. But right now, look, Ethan Norby's your ace, and I like Ethan, but we need a 1-2 punch on the mound, and we need some bullpen depth because who knows what happens with Wyatt with, you know, his coming off his injury. Does he get drafted? So I think the big thing right now is address the pitching staff.
Yeah, look at the pitching staff, and you mentioned Norby. I think some of the back end guys we saw develop or will develop this offseason that are returning. I think that the wild card is Shinkman, Wyatt Lunsford, Shinkman, Scooter. If he does return, I think he will be given the opportunity to be a starter next year, and obviously that's assuming he gets back to full health. But if he goes, I think that's another big blow. I think they're going to prepare for him to go either way. But if he's back, I think all of a sudden you feel a lot better about your pitching if he does return.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and we've seen, you know, you bring up, you know, let's just say Trey Savage. You know, he started his way in the bullpen and made his way into that starting rotation, and you see what, you know, the rest is history. And if Wyatt Lunsford Shinkman could do that, you know, he would be a solid starter for this program. I know there was some talk, you go back to, you know, the preseason this year about him having that Sunday role in the rotation. And, you know, there's obviously the fact that he can be a starter. There was, you know, the talk about him getting that Sunday spot this year. And so he's got the ability to do it. It's just if he can get this injury situation figured out in the offseason, that's going to be the biggest key of things. And, you know, you look ahead 2 years from now, you know, Jake Hunter, I think, kind of emerges as already in that rotation for one of his latter years of eligibility there, coming off of his injury. I really don't know what the status he will have next season. You know, I would not imagine him pitching at all next year. I could be totally wrong there, just coming off of his surgery. But, you know, that's obviously another arm that East Carolina is going to have to prepare not to have next season as well.
Yeah, we saw Matt Bridges kind of go through that during his ECU career where he got injured, I think, mid-season, had surgery, then had to miss the whole season, then came back after that. And I think pitched a couple years, but he was in the program a long time. As a result, we'll see what happens exactly with Jake Hunter. Phillip mentioned the outfield. Like, I mean, you look at it right now, like you got Riley Johnson in center. He's got to have surgery. Outside of that, I mean, I know there's a couple more outfielders, Chance Hall and I think Davin Whitaker, who are on the roster. But, like, I mean, they do have some outfielders coming in. But, again, they're going to be freshmen or JUCO kids, Scooter. So, like, you got to get outfielders pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And, you know, I think Davin and Chance might have the ability to redshirt now that they didn't really play at all this season. In fact, I don't even think they did play anything this year.
Neither one of them saw action.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, you have the ability to redshirt them, have them for 4 more years now. But as you said, you've got to have some other pieces come in. But it's going to be a fun competition when you look at the fall of next year, you know, really all over the field for so many positions. And so the fall season is going to be a fun one to watch this year.
Did anybody know? I know Jason Janesco saw a little playing time. Did he get any action in the outfield, or was it just pinch hitting roles, pitch running roles?
I think he did catch some, yeah. Didn't he catch the final out for one of the no-hitters?
He might have. I don't remember.
He did. I know he at least got out there a little bit.
He's on the roster as an outfielder catcher, so it's the only other name I had for you.
There you go. Jason Janesco also in the mix to be a guy who comes out of nowhere and makes an impact next year. We are out of time on this Thursday. Scooter, appreciate you. Phillip, appreciate you.
Thanks. Go Celtics.
Enjoy your time. Enjoy your time at an undisclosed location, Scooter. We will be back tomorrow, 12 noon, with Joe Sampson and more on ECU baseball. We'll talk to you then. This is Hoist the Colors.
With your host, Stephen Igoe. Tune in weekdays at noon for all things ECU sports. Get a recap of the show at 943thegame.com, on Twitter, Facebook, or anywhere you get your podcasts. We're back tomorrow.